Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Data Revolution podcast. I'm Kate Carruthers, and this time I will be talking with Gladwin Mendez. Gladwin is passionate about making a difference to the world through data and relishes the opportunity to expand that to a wider global stage. He's the Chief Customer and Analytics Officer at Simply AI, and he has more than 15 years experience in technology, data and analytics, and he has worked across New Zealand, Australasia, North America and Europe. And he is really keen on data, but super keen on people. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome, Gladwin.
Good to be on board, Kate. Thank you so much for having me.
I've been wanting to chat with you because we had a really interesting chat at a conference, and I thought it'd be interesting to keep that going. And so this is a great opportunity. But tell me, you want to talk about people, not data. This is a Data Revolution podcast.
It's a very strange concept, I imagine, Kate. But yeah, it is. It's sort of like, and I have a saying, I love data, and anyone who knows me knows I love data, but I like people more because I strongly believe it's not data that gets you there. It's people coming together, working on that data, using those tools, having that strategy, the process that brings out the best outcomes, right? At the end of the day, it's not all these magical things that happen. It's people churning and working through things collectively, and that collective excellence at the end of the day.
That's kind of antithetical to what a lot of people seem to think about the world of, data and inventions, where it's the great hero and stuff. But it sounds like you really want to bring together the people, the process, as well as the technology.
Exactly. Look, again, I've always strongly believed in those 5 pillars of strategy, people, process, technology, and data, right? And you have to have sufficient alignment across all of those. Otherwise, the lack of having any one of those things, or if any one of those things is sufficiently behind, you're going to really be hamstrung, and you're not going to be able to deliver as effectively as you should.
So when you're talking about people, I mean, you're obviously talking about different people at different levels in the organisation. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the leadership. So what are things do you think they need to be doing and looking out for?
Well, I think, and when I talk about leadership, I also talk about the governance. So again, as an Institute of Directors member, it starts at that board level. Right? The board set the strategy, and the executive and the organization deliver to that strategy. So, using artificial intelligence, for example, a lot of noise, lots of information out there, very, very polarizing. I think we can all agree about that. But there needs to be sufficient understanding at a board level and that tone at the top. I'm not saying that they have to know all the ins and outs out of AI. What I'm saying is they need to know sufficient information about AI so that they can manage the risk and they can govern it, and then they can push down that and understand what's realistic or unrealistic and push that into the strategy for the business and the CEO to deliver. And, so that's that top down, but also bottom up. I attended an amazing CSIRO event, and they talked about this insurance company where every single team member, and this insurance company has a really high level of maturity because they've ensured that the education, the literacy of all the team members, the CEO can explain sufficiently to any one of the customers or people on the street how his company is using AI. Not at a technical level, but this is how we're using it, and this is how we protect our customers, how we protect our communities, and that's what we need, right? And that's just an example of something very topical with the AI, but there needs to be sufficient literacy level for people to essentially be able to deliver and be, a data-led organization, right? Again, if I were to use an analogy, Kate, would be to drive a car, you need to get your driver's license, right? It's the same sort of thing. To really drive this data-driven organization, you need to have a certain level of understanding, you stop at a red light, you stop at a stop sign, you keep to the speed limits, so on. So yeah.
Well, but all of that's really just starting to emerge now with AI. So, we've got really solid ways of working and managing with databases, and we know what we should be doing when we're managing a database. But all of that's just starting to emerge now with AI. Like, there's standards, but they're all very new, and a lot of them haven't been implemented in real life yet. So and you seem to be saying that we need data literacy. And how do you drive that through an organization?
Well, look, I think there's no silver bullet to doing that. And I know organizations spending significant amounts of money, but you've got to start somewhere. As a data executive, I think it's important, and this is with my first 100 days in any role, would be meeting all my counterparts at the exec level to sit down, understand the business's problems, and understanding the business. And then after listening is then to play back to these various stakeholders how potentially data could help them and what the journey needs to be. So you've got 2 years, so you've got to listen to start off with. And that's what I usually did in my first 100 days. Lots of listening. And then at the appropriate time is then essentially reflecting back to them, hey, look, you have X, Y, and Z problem. This is potentially an area where data could help you. And let's work together on solving those business problems and delivering those business outcomes. Because again, people talk about you need those use cases, right? And the easiest way to teach is not through theoretical and kind of dislike the word best practice. I actually prefer good practice, which is pragmatic, practical, use cases and examples for real life problems.
Oh, yeah,
and
totally.
Problems that business people are facing. And it's not just the executive, it's all the people down to the front line who are dealing with these challenges and problems of, the most dangerous words I've ever heard in any business that I've gone into is, well, we've always done it this way. Is can you create an environment? And now we're mixing up different kind of concepts, but this is where I strongly feel that through people, through culture, and that's why they're saying that the only time overrides anything else is culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it's that, can you build that culture of being comfortable, put your hand up and going, hey, look, actually, I'm going to challenge the status quo. And you have yourself and your team looking out for those and actually working alongside people on the front line all the way up to the executive, right? It doesn't matter going, hey, look, here's a real life example where data analytics and machine learning and AI can help you, and let's work through it together and actually delivering together on a real life use case that they can see the value rather than a theoretical. But that's what I find the most useful way of doing it. Show, not tell.
Yeah, I hear you. That's how I got my data lake. I had this vision for a serverless data lake, and I said that to a few people, and they went, "Oh, what?" And so I did a proof of concept and showed them, and they were blown away at how fast we could load data and build dashboards. So, show before you tell is always best. Hey, but we've been talking a lot about the leadership, but obviously we need to work through our people, our data professionals, and that's a really challenging thing to do right now because even finding people is really hard. How are you going about that?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Kate. Now, I would almost respond with a question back, which is, we're all struggling, all us data leaders, to find good people in the data space. But my question back is, what are we as data leaders doing to change that? Right? So literally, just the other week, I engaged with one of the universities here in Sydney to go, hey, look, and I've had experience in sort of New Zealand and would frequently be called in to lecture and present and provide feedback to the universities, right? And I call that cultivating the grassroots level, right? It requires a more long-term view, but I've seen that come to fruition time and time again. So I'm really, really passionate again about people, but people at, educating the next generation of data leaders. And nothing makes me more proud than seeing people actually exceed my career path, right, and do better than I have. But literally starting from heck, I met them at university. After doing a presentation or a lecture, they came running up and said, "Hey, look, tell me more about X, Y, and Z in data." And then they've gone into maybe pivoted, or instead of going purely business, they've gone, "I want to do business and analytics," right? And then come through the ranks. And again, as a data leader, I watch their career, and first chance I get, I grab them and bring them into my organization, right? So my answer is answering it with a question at the end of the day, is what are we data leaders doing? And I feel there are many things we could be doing, and I'm doing it, and I'm looking for people to help me to sort of engage with the universities and give back in that ecosystem of business, academia, and government on what can we do as data leaders to cultivate that generation. It's not going to happen overnight, but in the long run, if we can get people more excited and interested in STEM subjects, that's where we're going to get it from.
Yeah,
let's make it exciting again, right?
Well, I keep telling people that there's two careers that are future-proof. It's cyber and data. They are the two growth areas for careers, and data is a really exciting place to be now because it drives the whole business. Before, data was really static and boring, and it was just in databases. But now it's flowing and driving the entire business. So it's a really interesting time. And obviously, being at a university, I know we're teaching all of these people in our analytics courses and stuff. And we've got a really sweet little data society amongst the students, and they're really so enthusiastic and adorable. But it's really interesting to think about what's the career trajectory now. So, somebody will start as maybe a data analyst or a data engineer. And what I'm starting to see is new roles emerging. So I'm going to be hiring my first AI engineer very soon. And I'm already seeing the need for like an AI product manager who will be like a BA, but who understands the technology of AI. So it's really interesting to think about the new roles that are going to start to emerge. How do you think you can transition people from like being a data analyst to being in one of those new roles sort of thing?
I think it comes down to a couple of things, but if I was to distill it down to one key aspect, and maybe I'm oversimplifying things, but it's that growth mindset. We opened up the conversation earlier with, "Hey, look, geez, we're having to learn so much, ourselves included."
Yeah.
I think if you get the right team members who always never stop learning, that's what I always hire for, right? And I don't even lock it down to or focus it just purely on STEM individuals. Some of the best team members I've had have come from accounting background, and also having that diversity in thoughts. I've had business people, I've had accountants, I've had lawyers who've gotten really excited, but bring that interesting flavor. And so, this talking, there was that interesting case of that lawyer using ChatGPT and it backfired.
That was so funny.
It's like, but it shows that people are trying to use it, right? But it's just this, what can we do to cultivate that different ways of thinking? If you've got a legal background, then maybe you're actually really great for the privacy and ethics aspects of AI and machine learning. So I think it comes down to two things: is growth mindsets, and people are willing to learn and grow. And secondly, is not limiting my our focus on just purely, technical backgrounds and sort of, and like IT or technology. Again, another example I use, one of the best data stewards I ever had, and I couldn't believe how good he was, actually came from a tax person. Would you believe it? He was one of the best data stewards, hands down, I've ever seen. and he was so engaged in news information and so that he was then informing product people and finance people and even the BI team on, hey, look, actually your assumption with this product and benefits are actually wrong. Right? It's actually this, and this is the correct treatment of this product and benefit. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we need people like that. And it's always good to keep your mind open. I remember we hired somebody who failed the coding test that we had for our data engineers, but made a good answer. So they said, I don't know this language. I've got no idea about it, but here's how I'd approach it. And they laid out the steps. Yeah. And we just hired her because it was a sensible approach, and she was smart. She could learn coding. She didn't need to know it. So hiring smart people is helpful too.
And like to that point also is like, so again, similarly, I've gone to universities and recruitment events and been on sort of moderation panels kind of thing, or panels where my message to the students are, look, it's not about you have to have all the skills. You just have to have that right mindset, that logical mindset, like you've talked about, Kate, and be enthusiastic and have that hunger and want to learn about it. And I'll take that over someone who's technically brilliant, but maybe a brilliant jerk, right? We all know of one or two of them.
That leads me into my next question is what about the people skills? Because having people who are good with data who aren't good with people means that they can't play well on a team.
Exactly. Well, teamwork makes the dream work, right? And that's to say, I use that saying, and a lot of data executives I respect use that same term. And another one that I use, and I mention it and usually close with it quite often in my presentations, is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? Because it's a team effort at the end of the day. I've got zero tolerance for brilliant jerks on my team. And I will typically have some very hard discussions with them until they become team players, right? Because you have to be able to work in a team. And also as a leader, we have to put in the hard work to coach them and mentor them and, not write them off, but give them the right support so that they can be the best that they can be within their capabilities, right?
But have you had to get rid of people? I have, and it's always a hard discussion, but you need to protect the team.
Exactly. Exactly right. Yeah, look, I agree. There's no room for brilliant jerks. So if you're technically brilliant, but you can't do it on your own, because we all work together. You can't do it all on your own, right? You can't have one person running an entire company.
Yeah.
So I agree. You can't. I can't. If you're a technically brilliant person, yeah, you can't accept that on a team as a team lead.
So one of the other things I always look for is people who've played team sports, because they come ready-made playing together.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'll take it one higher than that. But because I don't play team sports, I'm terrible at sports. I'd immediately fail your test, Kate. Is ex-military.
Mm-hmm.
If I come across, and I've had, and these people will know I'm talking about them, is the best manager and leader I ever worked with was ex-Air Force in the New Zealand Air Force. And I remember our team always being so happy and so excited to come to work, right? Wonderful, wonderful leader. And I remember always wanting to be like him. And I've had a number of team members, and if I had two CVs and one had military experience in it, I'd often normally gravitate towards the ex-military person, because it doesn't get more serious than that in the military, because if you're not a team player, people are going to die. So I think ex-military people, and it's funny, I actually made that comment at the Chief Data and Analytics Officer conference we had. I forget what the chap's name, he was from the Australian military and data governance group. And I said, I'm sorry, I end up coaching from you guys every time because you have the best team players.
Yeah, well, so that's an interesting thing about how they train their people because, there's all the technical skills, but a lot of times what I see in organizations, they don't invest any training in their people, and they certainly don't teach them about management. And that's a big gap.
And I think I agree. And some organizations are better than others at it. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of, having gone through the ranks of some organizations that had some really good team and skills taught to you. And one in particular was like the trusted advisor training, which I always reflect on in everything I do. But I think, again, as a data leader, to that people focus, you as a data leader are not going to succeed unless you can train up your team members and your second in charge and so on, and teach them what good looks like, and then trying to cultivate a positive working environment for all your team members, and actually cracking down on any sort of maverick behavior, right?
It sounds like you're really talking about modeling good behavior for your people.
Exactly. Yeah, I think, again, it comes down to that tone at the top, right? If it's a toxic environment up at the top, and if you have managers who accept bad behavior, that's just going to kill it. Because what's the number one reason people leave companies? Kate?
It's the managers. It's the
managers, it's the leaders, right? And it's the same thing. It's like, so on the flip side, why do people stay? Because they've got good leaders and good managers, right?
Yeah, it's such an important thing. And, one of the things that I'm always working with my up-and-coming leaders is they need to make that shift from being an individual contributor to being a leader. And I keep saying that the only way you can do big things is with people, through people. And so that's the people become your tool, not the coding or whatever it is that you're doing, you used to do. So it's interesting. Well, we're just about out of time. So thank you so much, Gladwin. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, you're welcome, Kate. It was lovely to come on and have a little rant and yarn and stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, it's always nice to chat with people that I know. And that's all for now, folks. Thank you for joining us. Hope you'll join me again next time. Please don't forget to review and rate the podcast. It really does help. Thank you. And bye. And that is it for another episode of the Data Revolution podcast. I'm Kate Carruthers. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to give the show a nice review and a like on your podcast app of choice. See you next time.